Are you discouraged because you've asked your partner to do something 5,622 times? Does it feel like you're carrying the bulk load of the household chores? Does your spouse make a sandwich and then leaves everything out because it's going to magically find its way back into the refrigerator? And then when you do react to the mess, does it feel like you've stepped into a parent-child-like role? It's exhausting. Well, today we're going to share suggestions that you've probably already tried, but with a slightly different spin to it. Stay tuned. Hi, my name is Danielle West. My husband and I help couples repair marital strife to get more out of life. Many thanks for subscribing to our channel and hit the bell to be notified when we post a new video every week. The history of why women have traditionally been responsible for housekeeping can be traced back to the division of labor in pre-industrial societies. In these societies, men were generally responsible for hunting, gathering food, while women were responsible for caring for the children and maintaining the home. Now, as societies became more complex and settled, women were expected to be subservient to men and to prioritize the needs of their families over their own individual aspirations.
That's what's important, my new cookbook, and my husband and my family, and making a perfect home. It's a lesson every gal needs to learn.
Over time, as more women began to enter the workforce, women were still expected to balance both their professional and domestic responsibilities. Culturally, the burden of housekeeping and caregiving still falls disproportionately on women in many societies. In marriage, we all bring in conscious or subconscious expectations. How will we manage our money? Will we carve out time for date nights? How will we split up the chores? If you call yourself a Christian, then our disposition should resemble a submission competition, where we are putting our spouse's needs before our own needs. But in the reality of life, kids, work, sports activities, we fall into certain roles in our marriage, and one spouse could end up carrying a heavier load than the other spouse is carrying.
Basically, the household responsibility is mine. I do all the washing and vacuuming, etc. He takes out the garbage, does an occasional dish, and when I start yelling and screaming, then he does more of my responsibilities, which he feels are my responsibilities.
When we're not intentional, we usually mimic our family of origin roles. In my family, my dad would come home after work, make himself a drink, and sit in the living room until it was time to come to the table for dinner. After dinner, he would leave the kitchen, expecting our mom and us kids to clean up. He was simply modeling what he grew up with in his household. Historically, women have been seen as the primary caregivers and homemakers in many cultures, which has led to the expectation that they will take on the majority of the household responsibilities. Before or shortly after you got married, you might have discussed your expectations of who will pay the bills, tidy up the house, make the bed, do the laundry, who's going to cook, who's going to clean. Over time, things got busy and being intentional got kicked to the curb. You fell into patterns that now have turned into expectations, and you're feeling like the housekeeper instead of a spouse.
How about the husband who loves to play with the baby but has no sense of smell? You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, it's true. I mean, they're the one that sort of, they're playing happily with the child, and all of a sudden it's yours. And you don't quite know why, but you do, shortly. It's the same old thing. It's taking the cream off of any situation. Men have a way, I think, of taking the the maraschino cherry and the cream off of any situation in life and leaving you, with a dirty dish. With a dirty dish.
So, how do you approach a spouse on this touchy subject? What if your spouse won't help out? First and foremost, marriage is a covenant relationship. It's not conditioned on the other person's behavior. Demanding things to be done turns our marriage into a contract relationship. I will if you will. Suddenly, you're keeping score. And this type of marriage makes you feel like you're married to the utility company. The other party only cares if you pay your bill on time. I love what 2-to-1 premarital curriculum that was designed by North Point Community Church. It says unhealthy expectations come from a you owe me mentality. Preventing that attitude from becoming toxic in your marriage requires embracing that the opposite is true. Your spouse owes you nothing. Now, that may sound absurd, but it's really the only way to prevent your marriage from becoming a debtor/creditor relationship. Making the conscious choice to release your spouse sounds risky. It may even sound irrational. After all, we make vows on our wedding day that establish certain obligations, right? But if you flip the perspective for a moment, when you make those same vows, does that mean you owe a debt to your spouse and they have a right to demand what you owe? Or are you making a commitment before God and witnesses to do your best to serve your spouse? Not because you owe a debt, but because you are freely choosing to do so. Mutual submission in marriage means deciding that you'll put your spouse's wishes, desires, and dreams above your own. That's a little scary, right? But if your spouse is doing the same, you won't be taken advantage of, and your marriage won't turn into a debtor-creditor relationship. Let's go back to the scenario where mutual submission was the agreement, but the mutual part is missing now. What do? We all know telling our spouses what to do rarely gets us what we want. So let's use a gentle startup. It looks like this. I've really appreciated how hard you've been working at closing your recent deals at work. Lately, I've been overwhelmed with the kids, and it would really mean a lot if you could help me clean up the kitchen tonight while I give the kids a bath. If you know Steve Harvey, he has some additional humorous suggestions to add along the way.
Ladies, if you're trying to get your man to do something and you're struggling, all you have to do is cut a deal with him. Men only respond to one of three things: pain, consequence, or reward. Now, in your deal that you cut, make sure that subliminally there is some pain and consequences along with the reward. You can then get exactly what you want, and he get exactly what he wants. Stop going to your man with what you want without putting something in it that he can get. I'm sorry that we're like that, but that's how we are. I apologize for us.
In addition to Steve Harvey's suggestion of giving them a reward, have you tried a chore swap? So with a chore swap, you're basically making a deal with your husband to swap chores for a week. You can take on each other's responsibilities, and at the end of the week, see who did a better job. This can be a fun way, maybe, to mix things up and get a new perspective on each other's household duties. I was surprised when my husband started doing the laundry. But mind you, it only happened when we finally had brand new fancy washing machines with all the buttons. He now felt equipped to do the laundry. Afterwards, he folded all the clothes. Well, it was his version of folding. To me, it just looked like my clothes were in a ball with no resemblance of it being folded. So I said, you can wash the laundry all day long, but I'll fold my own clothes. This is the cycle we come across when it comes to chores. One spouse wants something done and the other is in denial. It doesn't need to be done because if they agree, they'll have to do the chore. After denial, the next stage comes to resistance of why does it even have to be done? And that argument can go back and forth a long time. Finally, and hopefully, there is some exploration like fitting a housekeeper into the budget or keeping the mess limited to one part of the house. But the exploration should be an ongoing discussion like Russ and I had with our laundry. The critical part of this exercise is to share sincere gratitude when you see there was an attempt, even if it wasn't up to your standards. Let me repeat that. Share sincere gratitude when you see there was an attempt, even if it wasn't up to your standards.
Oh my gosh, you cleaned up. I love it. I can't tell you how much it means to me to come home and find the house clean like this. I can relax in my own house, and I feel like you care.
Just because I pick up a few papers?
Hey, it's not a just, it's a lot.
Like Russ folding my clothes, I could have easily shown disgust that he equated folding my clothes when it looked like they had just been taken out of the dryer. Instead, it was important to share how grateful I was that he wanted to finish the task. I gladly took back part of the task because I wanted the laundry to actually fit back into my dresser.
Are you discouraged because you've asked your partner to do something repeatedly, like maybe 5,622 times? Well, I'm going to challenge you to stop asking them. I know, it sounds counterintuitive, but instead I want you to encourage them, compliment them, brag about them. And I know it may require you to dig deep, but watch how it impacts them and ultimately helps you. Be sure to let us know how this works for you.
In our marriage, we need to talk about what's important to our spouse. We don't do chores because we enjoy them. We do them because they are important to our spouse. But the conversation needs to go both ways. One couple finds that the wife wants order and cleanliness, and the husband doesn't see the necessity of it all. He's fine with the house just the way it is. So how do they find middle ground? If this is a covenant marriage, then they will be finding ways to put their spouse's needs before their own. Ask your partner what's important to them. Your way is not only the right way. And this is where it's harder for the wife who wants a neat, orderly, clean house. She's going to have to compromise and bend to what her husband's looking for. If you're finding resistance to these suggestions, I need to ask you if your current way is working for you. If not, try expressing gratitude and see if you can break through any resistance. If you're watching this and you're an empty nester, or maybe your parents are, be sure to let them know that our course, Communicate Clearly course, way cheaper than a divorce, is going to be opening up April 1st, and we're only accepting 5 couples. This course has transformed marriages. And the neat part about it is you'll get 2 free one-on-one sessions with Russ and myself. And the course is not something you have to go through completely. We design which parts will apply directly for you based on your one-on-one sessions. So we're excited to deliver this to you. You'll also be invited to a live weekly video call where you'll be able to ask questions and learn from other couples. If you're interested in this, be sure to send me an email. My email address is in the description below. Remember, to have an extraordinary marriage, be intentional. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.